Okay, hey, so we're going there. Artificial intelligence. You just saw it all over Eric's talk. Artificial intelligence should not be scary. It should be something that we pursue. And I think we've got a great framework, and platform to pursue it with TAK. And then we've got a fantastic community of many different groups and personas represented to start getting after it. The tail end of my brief will be a bit of a blueprint. Is that flickering? Darn. Got three sections of this brief. So first of all, who would say they're new to TAK? Like, it's okay. Like, we're all your friends here. Who's new? Raise your hand high to TAK. Like, you've never been hands-on with it. You're maybe not heard about it for more than a year. We do have a handful of you, and the first chunk of my brief is going to be for you. It's going to be to inform you about what TAK is, briefly, and then how this machine actually works, because it is not your standard machine in the Department of Defense or the U.S. government. It's probably the one organization that fully embraces the bureaucratic nature of the U.S. government and exploits the advantages of that bureaucratic nature. The second part will be a refresher from our published TAK 2030 strategy, some minor revisions in the works, but all told, the strategy is consistent. I will walk you through that, our pillars and our themes. And then the third part is going to be about the artificial intelligence that I cite here. It is not bad artificial intelligence. It is good artificial intelligence, and it's premised on the data. In fact, 90% of how we will realize artificial intelligence in TAK and do things that move from prediction, machine learning, to decision-making predicated on good prediction, artificial intelligence, within the TAK world. But first, we're going to do something fun. We're going to first remember one of our members that passed away this year. Who knew Yosh personally? He wasn't at most of these offsites recently. He was fighting colon cancer. But Yosh, if you've used TAK, in fact, I'll go so far as to say the whole reason we are all here today is because a really bright operator, combat control technician, was injured in combat, a fratricide incident. TAK does friendly force identification and target correlation because Al Yoshida told the engineers how it should happen, period, dot. So when we look at the history of TAK, Al Yoshida, Yosh, to many of us, was the reason for it. He passed away in December of last year. And so we fondly remember Yosh. Great memories of him being in this community, continuing to drive the community forward. He retired years ago and continued to remain active, share his knowledge, and really advanced the state of the art for the entire DoD. This man was very soft-spoken, but had a tremendous legacy. And so we remember Yosh, and we're grateful for what he's done. Okay, so we're gonna do roll call now too. So we're gonna go through the services. I want you to be loud, and then we'll get to the other kind of parts of the DoD and U.S. government. But Army, come on, really? I know we got more Army in here. Army. All right. Navy. Who we have from the Navy? Okay, we got a closet back there in the Navy. Cool. Marine Corps. There we go. Yeah. We're really doing this section from the Marine Corps. We just had to put you in the middle to make it look like we didn't do it that way. We have anyone from the Coast Guard? Okay, I know we've got Coast Guard TAK users out there, but we don't have them here this year. Air Force. That's right, me too. And we do have Space Force TAK users. Do we have any here at the event? Space Force? No? Okay. Did I hear a couple? Hey, right on. Thank you. Okay, our intelligence community partners. Maybe you can't say that you're here. That was a trick. Okay, do we have any of the combatant commands, geographic or functional combatant commands represented? Yeah? Okay, a few hands up. We've got the public safety TAK community. They have done the coolest thing. They've made the TAK icon their own. We certainly don't frown upon that. We encourage it. That TAK logo is owned by the taxpayer. So they've done some really neat stuff, and they continue to advance the state of the art in TAK. I know we've got AJ here. We've got Brad Schmidt. We've got Corey Foy. We've got a number of people giving talks this week, and they are the torchbearers in the public safety community, making public safety faster and more effective at responding to emergency events. And then finally, our TAK Configuration Steering Board members. This is foreshadowing toward how it was resourced, but our Configuration Steering Board members, if you'd please stand, we want to recognize you. They're the ones that pay the bills. We are all here today in a tactical sense because they pay the bills, they make the gears turn. If you'd stand, please, we want to recognize you. Where are you? Got a few. Great. Okay, so we're going to get into the meat now. TAK 101. If you don't know already, TAK is the U.S. government's premier geospatial operating system, and we're pretty emphatic about that. Over the years, we've come to learn that as people have adopted TAK, you can't remove TAK from the U.S. formations and continue to be on the current technological and warfighting trajectory we're on today. And so it's found its way to many formations, many echelons, primarily tactical echelons. Yes, the name would imply tactical echelons, but it continues to be increasingly useful at the tactical echelons. People find new uses for it every day. It's because we're developing and improving our own map engine and geospatial technology from scratch. And that's why we can layer all these technologies on top, because the math in the engine for the Earth is good. It's sound. It's been validated many times. The applications themselves, as far as the networking, they undergo continual cybersecurity testing and evaluation. And we've got a community that will give us feedback. Like Colonel Pritchett said, feedback is a gift. We take that and we try to make the product better. But it runs on all operating systems. We are working to get TAK. I don't think TAKX is all the way back up on Mac OS, right? But we're close. So we cover the operating systems, and then it's natively architected for the DDIL. There's, as I'm sure many of you have seen, in the requirement space, program office space, staff officer space. There's much ado about DDIL, and of course, a lot of us here in the TAK community, we say, like, you know about TAK, right? So those conversations still occur. We'll keep educating people, but there is a family of software products that works really well with no or limited communications, and that's the TAK family of products. It's been the engine itself. I said the math is good. It's been validated by the NGA's analysis division to say, yeah, it actually is good enough with the right appropriately generated map imagery to do categorized coordinate generation. And so we do see it used pretty fully across the CJAD C2 initiatives, across the services. Overmatch, convergence, obviously, the PEO C3BM and the General Advanced Battle Management System initiative in the Air Force, the Marine Corps Project Dynamis. It is not the full game of CJAD C2. I think we're pretty honest about that, and it's really refreshing to have briefs like Eric's that show like TAK is a part of it. Like TAK is a big part of it because it's owned by the government. We steward it. We make it available to the government first, and then to our partners. But it is a ceaseless part of the CJAD C2P vision for the U.S. and our allies. And as many of you have seen, it adapts very well to almost any or just any concept of operations. So what is TAK? If you're not familiar, if you're here to learn, I'm going to tell you about it. We do the TAK application so people can do, as I said earlier, friendly force identification and target correlation. Friendly force identification, target correlation. You saw that in spades in Eric's screenshots. That is, number one, what TAK is meant for, what it's used for, and then people add on all these other integrations to do enhanced friendly force identification, enhanced target correlation. So there's all kinds of ways you can stitch this ecosystem together, this family of products, the plugins, other systems, but it exists for that purpose. We can bring data links into it. We can use it for military freefall operations of all varieties. And you know, the program offices are critical, the PEOs are critical to the fielding of TAK and the realization, the growth of TAK, because they're the ones that have to go shepherd it through certification, verification, validation, all the formalities. We don't do that at the TAK Product Center. The PEOs are carrying the water, so it's a very thankless role, oftentimes being in a PEO, but if you're an operational or tactical end user and you're using TAK for any of these high-risk mission sets, thank a PEO, because they're the ones that are doing the paperwork, they're the ones that are going through with the validation and formal verification entities to make sure that you have a really good tool. So thank a PEO member. So we consider TAK to be an information dominance platform for both software development and for operational end use, which is pretty cool, because that means if you're developing a plugin in a laboratory setting, you're using the same exact application, maybe with a few minor caveats, but the same exact application, the same earth math, the same comms libraries that your operational end user is using today. So we see the valley of death. All these bridges are being built across the valley of death because people are using TAK. We'll never close the valley of death. There's always funding, resourcing issues, .mil PF issues that we can't solve for in the TAK community, but you're building bridges across that valley. Keep doing it. So we've got the platforms here. I said we cover all the operating systems minus Mac OS today. I know you can run ATAK on Mac OS, but I think it's only on the Apple Silicon. Nonetheless, they're highly capable products, and we can layer plugins onto them. We can federate TAKServers together, and so very broad brush. If you're new to it, this is a secure family of applications where you can do situational awareness, command and control, fires, and other tasks like unmanned or uncrewed autonomy. The software is architected deliberately to be built upon. That was a decision made in the very early days of TAK. So TAK emerged as a laboratory project. Really, you can trace the roots as far back to 2002 with TAKServer. No, it's not the same source code that was written in 2002. It's been modernized, gutted, rewritten to keep pace with technology and end user needs. But when it was really starting to kind of take off at Air Force Research Laboratory, we've got some of our AFRL colleagues here, some of the same people like Ralph and Dave, who I was working with back in 2014 to get TAK transitioned to programs of record. We really wanted it to be something that people could build upon. We didn't really know where it would go, but we knew that if it were only the core application that you could modify and add tools to, if it were just contingent upon merge requests being accepted into the baseline and built, on a nightly or whatever basis, that would really limit the scale of what could be a very promising and game-changing technology. So we built everything around the core. TAK kernel is continually evolving, and so it's the earth math, it's the encryption, and a few other libraries. But what core does is it allows us to have a common reference to how we view the Earth, how we do geospatial math, and how we encrypt data. Common combo also makes its way across the products as well. That's how we transmit information between the TAK products and other systems as well. But it's all the same libraries, just compiled to the right operating system. We don't make a big deal about that in DoD, but I think that's honestly like pretty novel, like having the same code base compiled, targeted to different operating systems, and run in who knows how many different places. That's special. And then we add all these tools on top. All those tools that you see under number 2, those are numbered because those are actually individual commodity jurisdiction determinations. Like, you wonder how TAK is publicly releasable. Charlie Johnson, Chris Lawrence, they had to go through and enumerate every one of those cases, submit those to the authorities in the U.S. government, Department of Commerce and Department of State, have them evaluated, and then say, yep, those are commodity. Those have commodity jurisdiction and are EAR 99 compliant. So every one of those tools broken out in a separate piece of paperwork has that annotation. The MIL flavored stuff, the fires tools, those have determinations as ITAR technologies, but they are left off that list on purpose. Then we add plugins in, which is what many of you are developing. That's how TAK kind of molds and shapes to the formation. We tackle the fundamentals of the map engine and the comms and the encryption. We let other people come alongside with the plugin software developer kit and build what they need to fit the mission. And then finally, the user interface. You make it look like what you need to make it look like. I will tell you, I'm involved in some stuff right now on the Air Force side in my reserve role to make ATAK actually look like a pilot vehicle interface, a multifunction display, so that we can actually fly it in fighter aircraft. That's a real thing going on right now. Okay, this chart, like we could really blow this up, but the number of radios that TAK supports is essentially endless. We have some really great partners in the ecosystem that understand radio phone middleware just to an unbelievable degree. And so they're able to come in and kind of stitch together all these radios, how we get the data off the device to partners, to our teammates from the end user device, and then, produce it on the device the exact same way that it left the device. A marker in one format really does look the same way on your friend's device because we provide for the open architecture integration of these radios. Now it's harder than it looks in a lot of cases. There's a lot of brain power that goes into how to make a lot of these proprietary radios work with the end user device and laptops you take into the field. But people get after it and anywhere from just pure hacking to see if it'll work. We've seen that to programs of record that really thoroughly spell out the requirements. But end users can talk to other end users. We can correlate targets and we can identify friendly positions. I'm going to keep going back to that. Okay, so a TAK system. You saw what a really super mature and fast evolving TAK system, what we consider a TAK system looks like in the MME brief. But it's comprised of TAK software. You got to have hardware to run it on. You got to have a network to connect to, and you got to pump data into that network, and you got to let data transit that network. Meanwhile, meeting all of these security requirements and the policy requirements to do that in an operationally safe, suitable, and effective way. So these TAK systems are very complex. Our job is to make it as easy as possible to get after that complexity. So some screenshots of the applications. There really is no limit to what you can do with TAK as long as there's a geospatial flavor to it. We can do wide area team awareness. You see there in National Capital Region. VRTAK is a really awesome tool for virtual situational awareness. We're starting to see some kind of virtual common operating picture applications of VRTAK emerge. People use it for the Chem Bio mission set in the federal agencies and the intelligence community, and so you see some of that on display there in the bottom. Those two bottom right screenshots, I know I showed these last year, I think I showed these last year, but I actually took those two screenshots when I was aboard the USS Carl Vinson, the aircraft carrier, last summer. We were up on the bridge with the ship's navigator, and he said, yeah, the captain just sits here, the navigator sits here in this chair up on the bridge, uses Google Maps to steer the carrier. And I was like, oh my gosh, like a $4 billion aircraft carrier, and we're using Google Maps. Then, meanwhile, they have the big, beautiful, 20-inch integrated display with the super old, grainy digital nautical charts, or whatever they're called. And I said, we've got this application called ATAK. Have you heard of it? And so we kind of went through a little bit of it. Blomberg and Greg Albrecht kind of went into hacker mode with me. I said, guys, I need ADSB and AIS piped in for San Diego STAT, and they did it. And I was able to, while we were still on the carrier, show you realize you can use a U.S. government product really quickly to see where all the other civilian maritime traffic is. And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take that out with us next week. So they're deploying. So that was cool, but we'll get into how do you actuate that kind of stuff? That's a really trivial example. There needs to be more of that in the community. I mean, we have a lot of it already, but if you're not doing that, if you're not facilitating that, if you're a leader and you're not driving your people to just invest a few hours a week trying to bring a new data feed into TAK, do something new with TAK, then you're not pushing hard enough to many of Eric's points. Okay, so we have a really robust ecosystem across the federal government. When I talk about embracing the bureaucracy, I think it's really critical that TAK itself never actually became a program of record. Who did not know that? Who came into today thinking that TAK was a program? It's okay, you can raise your hands, it's all right. I know there's more of you because we go through this every year, but TAK is not a program. Instead, we are a product center. TAK Product Center. We're resourced by a coalition of willing program offices. And what they do is they field TAK. Like we effectively own at the TAK Product Center the engineering and release process for the software, and that's where we leave off, at the release process. We're between release and deployment. The PEOs, our customers, federal IT organizations outside DoD, they're the ones who are deploying product. And they do a lot of plugin development, they inform our core product development, but it's really important to know that like we embrace the bureaucracy, and that's why TAK has been so successful. Like we didn't fight the bureaucracy. We didn't say there's got to be one program to rule them all, given like there were conversations about that in the late 2010s, but we found a really good model, and we're actually seeing this model start to apply to other projects across the DoD. In fact, I'm on paternity leave, been kind of at home for 2.5 months. Had some folks to Indianapolis, where I live, a couple weeks ago. And we talked about how to build a new configuration steering board for a government-owned software suite called Stitches. You're going to hear from Rev, but we're super excited about that because there's a big play there to spread the burden of management and resourcing of that software suite across multiple organizations. CSBs, configuration steering boards and product centers, now it's not just TAK. We're actually seeing them proliferate where commoditized software makes sense, where commoditized and shared budgets and resourcing can actually occur. Can't occur everywhere, but the CSB and product center model is actually growing beyond TAK. And I think that's really exciting because it means that more users, more equities are going to have buy-in to software that's used in many places across the federal government. So how are we funded? I mentioned some of this, but yeah, the configuration steering board is formally chartered. When I say formally, I mean formal. The SOCOM acquisition executive in 2019 actually signed an acquisition decision memorandum that said we're going to establish a TAK configuration steering board and a TAK product center to steward the TAK products. The Army, Air Force, and SOCOM were all fighting over who was going to own TAK. Some people wanted a big program, others didn't. People just wanted to like fork it, own it, in their own corner. That would have been bad for the user because then you're not getting the shared contributions of many entities. So configuration steering board on the right provides TAK product center resourcing, and we ship product. Simple as that. Now here's our organization, and this is the end of the kind of what is TAK. This is how we're organized. We've got a number of product teams. We really only fund about half of the labor with configuration steering board dues. Our CSB members and a couple other organizations like DHS actually fund about half of the total labor that goes into the engineering products. A lot of people think there's this 100, 500 person big prime standing army, or that TAK belongs to a company. It doesn't. It belongs to the U.S. government, and the organization is run by the U.S. government with support from our industry partners, and it's spread out across a number of industry partners as well. That was another early design decision we made at AFRL in the early days. Give credit to Ralph Kohler for that. We said, like, if we give equity to really strong, trusted performers, and we spread that out over multiple performers, the government can provide a really high-quality product. We can allow performers to specialize. We can keep the contracting process fairly agile. So there's a lot of benefits to doing it this way. It takes a lot of work to manage multiple contractors, but when it comes down to it, we've got a great varsity level team that gets after the nuts and bolts of acquisition every day. Okay, so we'll recap the strategy, and then we'll get to what I think is the fun part, which is, hey, let's make some noise, let's make some movement in the community. We put together TAK 2030 because there was no published strategy for TAK in the federal government. We saw it as our place to create a vision for how TAK could continue to evolve. We didn't want it to really, kind of bias toward just like the land domain or whatever. We wanted to give it plenty of room to grow to all the domains. So we looked at the TAK CSB charter, which is a document that spells out configuration steering board roles and responsibilities, product center roles and responsibilities. And then we also shredded a bunch of policy and found a number of policies and strategy documents that we thought really spoke to the nature of where we wanted to take TAK. And so TAK 2030, again, like Colonel Pritchett said, published on tak.gov. I think it's tak.gov/pages/TAK 2030. You download it, read it. It is approved for public release, and it spells out these are the pillars that we stand on, and these are the themes that we're executing on. We think we're going to add maybe a couple more themes, but again, we're just kind of letting this current strategy rev sink in and you know, kind of drive things for a while. I think the exciting thing about where we are with our strategy is I think it was the November Developers Conference, right? We actually started driving our priorities in total alignment with the TAK 2030 strategy. So when you look at how we're shaping the products, yeah, we're always going to take end user input and listen to the end user first. But this now gives us a way to map those priorities into an overall strategy that the U.S. government can consume and follow along with. So we are, no kidding, executing to this strategy for about 8 months now. Okay, so we've got 4 pillars. These should really come as no surprise, but some of these are more challenging than others to get after. Empower TAK users. We've been in the business of empowering TAK users since day one. If we weren't in that business, we wouldn't be here. Continuously improve TAK. There's a lot of ways we can do that, and it takes on a slightly different flavor with every release. But you know, we really want to make sure that the TAK user experience, the developer experience, you know, the stability of the applications. Consider empower TAK users to be like features, and consider continuously improved TAK to be basically technical debt. What technical debt are we buying down to make TAK a better tool for the end user based on what already exists? And then make TAK effortless to integrate and secure. We've made some major advances there recently. In fact, we leaned in with our partners at Palantir. We came up with a bespoke licensing model for TAKServer. If you go to TAKServer today, it is licensed. The source code is licensed under GPL3. What we found out was for a closed proprietary software system like the Palantir family of products, GPL3 is kind of a poison pill. It forces you to either disclose the software, which you may not want to do for various reasons, corporate reasons or otherwise, or it forces you to declare the software you're embedding the GPL3 software into as GPL3 as well, which is not good for proprietary products, and we need proprietary products for competitive advantage in the global marketplace for national security. So credit to them and to Chris Lawrence, our chief engineer. We developed a bespoke licensing model and built on the deployment pattern we had already implemented with 18th Airborne Corps for continuous deployment of TAKServer. Now they're able to embed TAKServer in a proprietary architecture in a way that their lawyers are happy. So that's really cool because we satisfy both the engineers and the lawyers, and that's going to make, in fact, there's examples of that where we've made bidirectional data exchange between Palantir, which I think for a lot of people in the government was like kind of scary. It's like it's proprietary, like you got to pay money to access it. Okay, like let other people worry about who's going to resource it, but now the operator, the tactical end user at Echelon 5 and below has the opportunity to seamlessly integrate with a really robust common operating picture and common intelligence picture. There's some really powerful stuff, and it's at that intersection of like policy and engineering and programmatics and just getting after it, getting it done, finding a solution and a path to yes. But we want to find more ways to make TAK effortless to integrate and secure, because ultimately the proliferation of American technology into all these systems, both American systems and foreign systems, gives us a lot more flexibility on the battlefield, gives the commander a lot more flexibility on the battlefield. How are they going to integrate for tomorrow's mission? Well, we want to burn down as much risk as possible there before the software ever leaves the platform on tech.gov. And finally, make it available to everyone, everywhere. Varying opinions on the why we're doing open source in the TAK world. Why we pursued open source for ATAK and then TAKServer was actually very pragmatic. There was no altruistic motive behind putting it on GitHub for the world to see. It was actually so that we could give the binary to our partners. I'll spare you the full narrative, but there was a determination made kind of on that policy and commerce and state determination thread. We learned that we could not publicly release that technology because it incorporates AES 256 encryption and the OpenSSL libraries. We couldn't make it publicly available unless we mass marketed the technology, and we can't mass market it as the government, foreign military sales aside, and that's a different case entirely. What we had to do, they told us, they said, the only way you can mass market as the government is open source it. That's the mass market. And so we said, okay, well, we'll go through the process of doing that. So we learned how to do that. But yeah, we've got products that are in open source now. We do expect to make at least TAKX open source. We'd like to continue making the TAK products open source. We haven't tapped plugin open source. There's a number of open source plugins today, but we see a pretty big opportunity to make plugins that are bona fide, publicly releasable, also open source, so people can hack on them together with no fear of sharing source code and, am I doing this in the right way? If we can create a path for the average plugin developer to not just release a plugin, but also to open source that plugin think source code, that's a win for the tactical end user as well. So our ultimate objective is to be that allied information dominance platform. I think we're kind of there by continuously delivering fast, secure, and open digital platforms that create decision superiority. Okay, so our themes, and you can kind of just view these as a really simple two-dimensional matrix. We wanted to put it that way so it's really easy for the lay acquisition person to kind of comprehend and bake into their program's acquisition strategy. We said, okay, we're going to be focused on these pillars, these things that will never go away, and then we've got themes. The themes may kind of ebb and flow over time, and these are kind of how we bin the work. If you want to get into kind of an agile discussion, agile project management discussion, like we've now got a really clear framework for how we're binning work, discrete work items. Doesn't matter the product, what product is happening on. We kind of took care of all the automation to make that super seamless for the engineers in Jira. But now we've got this nice matrix, this framework where we can go to any stakeholder and say, okay, like you want to see what we're up to? Cool, like hop into our Jira with us and you can look at very clearly how our epics, features, stories, and so on map into this strategy. So it's actually a really nice tool, having the strategy first of all, but then having the mappings all done up in Jira the way that works for us. We can really accurately status kind of where we are in the development of the products. And I've been away for two and a half months. I was just in there poking around a week ago, and I will tell you it works. It works really nicely, actually, for someone who's only going to be, occasionally looking to see with the status of things. Okay, so we told you last year that the kind of the focus is for us, like we're pretty heavily compliant with the FY23, now FY24 NDAA and the 2022 National Security Strategy. I think we told you that the hard parts for us were going to be on deployability of the products. It's really hard making that gap from a development platform, which is TAK.gov, to operational end-use systems. With the forcing function of what Eric's been doing and a tight partnership there, we've really ironed out a lot of our deployment processes, but we've also worked with Line US and American units like 18th Airborne Corps. I mentioned them a little bit earlier. We developed, I should say, give credit where credit is due. Chris Lawrence and Josh Blomberg went down to 18th Airborne Corps and they developed a really super elegant TAKServer continuous deployment pattern. All you got to do is get your token, submit that token via merge request to the pipeline, the pipeline project. The pipeline itself is a project. And once that merge request is approved, you will get whatever endpoint you specify, the latest build of TAKServer. How cool is that? So if you've already got the downstream continuous deployment and kind of uptime, high availability tooling in place, if you've already got your DevSecOps reference design implemented or whatever, all you have to do is enroll, via that token, submit the merge request, and you'll get TAKServer. And then it's up to you. Like, we're not deploying it for you, we're releasing it to you, but we're taking out all that human toil of go to tak.gov, point-click download. Like, no one wants to do that. No engineer wants to spend their time doing that. So we're trying to make it easier for the end user. So deployability, we made some pretty good strides there. As far as zero trust goes, you'll hear our Andrew Carrar, who heads up our site reliability engineering, platform engineering practice. He'll talk about where we are with our DoD DevSecOps reference design implementation. I think it's actually pretty advanced for where the DoD is in platform engineering. It's been built from scratch with Python using an SDK called Pulumi. We've found that was actually a really prescient design choice instead of Terraform with all the kind of closed sourcing that HashiCorp did over the past couple of years. So we're using a true open source project to build out our infrastructure as code, and with that, baked into it is a really elegant approach to Zero Trust. We're mirroring a lot of what Platform One is actually built in to Platform One with the cloud native access point. We're using a tool called AppGate. It is the only cloud native access point software, the only Zero Trust endpoint software that is published in DoD Iron Bank. So if you wonder why we go with AppGate, well, there's a pretty clear reason. We'd like to see more Zero Trust clients, cloud native access point tools be published in that hardened container repository or registry, but that is time and effort to do. So nonetheless, we've made some pretty good strides with like kind of the platform side of Zero Trust. We've also made strides with the tactical edge side of Zero Trust. So I think like our position on like tactical edge Zero Trust is not to dictate how that should be done. That should be left up to the competent, G6, S6, A6, whatever, whoever's on ground with the users making technical decisions on their behalf. But we've seen really good implementations rolled out with MME, and tested, validated, verified things that'll hold water. And we also made Share, the DARPA Share technology, available to the MIL and GovTAK communities, the U.S. MIL and GovTAK communities. And the reason I say Share is Zero Trust at the tactical edge is because its essence is double packet encryption, or single packet authorization, double packet encryption, based on a predefined identity. So when you look at like single packet authorization, encryption, tied to identities, you're talking about that fundamental atomic element of information transmission, the packet, and being able to double encrypt that and make it only available, only unencryptable to certain identities, specific identities. That's the fundamentals of Zero Trust. So we're very excited about the potential for Zero Trust. Like it's gonna roll out into the tactical formations. It has been, but it's really gonna kind of envelop DoD. We see other great things happening with SOCOM and SEAM. And just a quick shout out to our SDA teammates in the front row. They're actually continuing to advance the Share software for their tactical end users. They heard the user, they listened, they put their money where their mouths are, and they said, we're going to keep improving Share and make it easier to configure and deploy for the tactical end users in SOCOM. So good news, that's going to benefit everybody else in the community too, but it matters to them, and they're executing on that. And then finally, we said we were going to advance the state of data. I will say that is probably still our weakest point in the TAK community, a really good, robust approach to data, but I'm going to tease and kind of propose how we can start viewing data very constructively and more rigorously in the TAK community, but we're going to need everybody's help to do it. So we said in FY24 we tackle these things. In FY24 we have tackled and we are continuing to tackle these hard problems to really shore up our compliance in alignment with these national strategies. Okay, so we're going to do it. We're going to say TAK and AI in public in the same sentence, big banner. Again, not the spooky, bad kind of AI, however you kind of look at that. I just want you to hear like good for the user AI, like really narrow AI at first, things that just make TAK easier to use, just make plugins easier to find. Like, who likes searching through 200 plugins or talking to the the Bronet for how do I get a kind of plugin for this? Shouldn't ATAK be recommending to the user, like, I see you're doing these kinds of things, check out this plugin, things like that. Narrow AI is where we start. But any organization that's doing AI effectively today, and I think there are many, they start with high quality data at scale. I think we have the tooling in place, but maybe not the compliance and the policy conformance in place to do this at scale in the TAK community. I'm going to tell you exactly what I mean. Eric's got hundreds of TAKServers, running on their implementation. We've got, probably thousands of TAKServers running across the federal government for just federal government purposes, military purposes, law enforcement purposes. Think of all the data that's being generated just on how those things are how the end user devices are working. I'm not talking about, sniffing out foreign intelligence. I'm talking about, hey, what plugins are you running with ATAK? Like, I can't tell anybody, like, what's the trend of how often is data sync run with ATAK or WinTAK or what have you. We have to get, like, that is the first step. We have to get good at understanding the telemetry. And I would hold the opinion that telemetry of any variety is plain unclass. We're not talking about coordinates. We're not talking about IP addresses. We're talking about very basic things about how ATAK is working, how it's configured. And so we'll have to work with the different programs and the PEOs. How do your security classification guides account for that? How are you accounting for application telemetry? And what would it take? Like, what does it take to get to a state of all telemetry being poured into one big data sink, one big federation hub, hosted at, the various classification levels? This is the kind of thing that we want to see first in the TAK community is telemetry. We want to know about the applications, how they're being used, without compromising OPSEC and without running afoul of any security classification guides. Okay, so we've got to get good at that very basal level of data. Now, it is, I think it's a true statement. I don't have the numbers to back it up, but just based on the numbers that we know about, I think it's a fair statement that probably aside from Microsoft Office products, TAK is the US government's most widely deployed and most widely used application. And so we own the core. We can do what we need to with it to meet the mission, to meet the intent. And so we really are going to start digging into this. And I'm going to tell you how. Okay, so we're going to look at TAK and AI through a really fundamentally simple perspective. Now, some of those words are small. I do apologize. This is an excerpt. I'm going to give you 2 excerpts from the DoD's data strategy. Now, it's published in 2020, and you might think to yourself, what policy is still valid, 4 years later? Read through the DoD data strategy, and I guarantee you'll be satisfied because it's very pithy, it's very succinct, and it lays out a vision for how to treat data in the DoD in a very, very effective manner. So what I've done is I've extracted a few of these elements. So one, we have to view data in the TAK community, all the data that comes out of and goes into the TAK products as a strategic asset. I don't know of anyone in the DoD today who is actually viewing their TAK data as a strategic asset. If you are, I'd like to meet you. But we don't see people pooling and seeking to share the data that their applications generate with other entities. Thanks, Carol. Appreciate that. Good. We have to collectively steward the data as well. So it starts with the configuration steering board members. They're the PEOs. They're the ones that are fielding these systems, and we're eager to lean in and develop strategies, develop tactics to steward that data. Like, what data can we make available for things like hackathons? How do we pool the resources of all these members who are operating at whatever classification level? How do we get that data in the hands of data scientists just so we can learn about the shape of that data and what we can actually do with it? I will tell you, we really don't, we can't really articulate the shape of the data that comes out of TAK. We know the queries and the file structures and whatnot, but outside of a few very small hackathons that have occurred, we haven't really dug into that. That is how we start going up the stairs to narrow artificial intelligence that ships with the application itself. We've got to be serious about the ethics. I know, on the federal law enforcement side, they're because their lawyers tell them to, they're very serious about the ethics. But what guidelines can we put in place? For collecting video imagery from these devices, if you're controlling, a fleet of autonomous drones, are we doing things like blacking out faces? Are we doing that? I don't know. But 5 minutes? Okay, all right, thanks. There are things that we can build into the application to help with that. I'm going to tell you how we're actually retooling our own organization to start to address this. There are some really helpful goals as well in that policy, the abbreviated VALTIs. Make data visible, accessible, understandable, linked, trustworthy, interoperable, and secure. I think these are responsibilities that we have to take on at the TAK Product Center, and we've got to tell users how we're doing that. But quite frankly, we're busy solving tactical problems in the software today, and we've got to scale to be able to address these bigger problems, which is exactly what we plan to do. So TPC 2.0, this is the organization we live in today. I showed you a picture of it. We're organized by value stream, and we ship product. Let's talk about TAK Product Center 3.0 for a minute. I won't go too deep into it because there's still quite a bit in the works. There's some of the actions we're taking to get there are a bit fluid and not totally laying flat, but I think we will actually be at a TPC 3.0 resourcing level initially by FY25. There's some really promising actions underway already. So what we envision for TPC 3.0 is, we're not just an organization that ships map software. We're an organization that actually ships user-focused, tactical and user-enabling, tactical artificial intelligence directly to tactical end users, right? So it's about shipping product to end users. Obviously, with all the partnerships that we enjoy from the PEOs, how can we make their lives easier? How can we always make sure that there's operationally safe, suitable, and effective software, the latest release, in the hands of the user? Okay, so we anticipate growing. I'm going to give you a snapshot here. This is going to change over time as we kind of get our resourcing in place. And I'm being intentionally vague because I don't want to give too much away. But we envision growing from a 27-person organization approximately to about a 120-person organization, complete with our own TAK Product Center Chief Data and Artificial Intelligence Officer, like we find in the combatant commands at the OSD level, as well as with a full staff, full complement of competent data scientists and data engineers. This is how we lean into AI. This is how we get good at the data. This is how we collect it, tackle the policy. All these things have to come together, but we've got to resource it, and we've got to task organize to exactly that. So this is the TAK Product Center 3.0 that we envision fulfilling over the next few years. We're going to ramp up to it. I don't think we're going to be at the point of landing a big contract to do exactly this off the bat. We intentionally want to ramp. We intentionally want to let the organization scale on its own. Scaling any organization is hard. Generally, you shouldn't scale more than 30% in a year. But as we've kind of blueprinted this out, looked at the budgets, the resourcing, manning levels with budget, labor rates, and just for inflation, all that stuff, we might need to grow at a rate of up to 40% to be at this full staffing within the fight up. Okay, so some really exciting times, and I think we're going to need much bigger rooms for these things. So today's enablers for TPC 3.0, we've got that huge reach. We've got TAK Platform 2.0, which you're going to hear all about in great technical depth. ATO reciprocity is now being endorsed. I think we can go farther. I will go so far as to hold the public opinion. I think we should be granting authorizing officials and security controls assessors and their ISMs, their information system security managers, I think we should be incentivizing them positively. There's no positive incentive for reciprocity today. Pay these people. Give them bonuses for adopting and seeking out reciprocity with others. Why are we not creating a positive incentive function? But I think there's a lot of momentum toward adopting reciprocity, and I think we're going to see a lot of positive movement. We've seen combat tactical mission network viability now. That allows us to reach all the way out to the edge and get the feedback from the tactical edge, things we were never able to do in Afghanistan and Iraq and other places where the counterterrorism mission drove operations. We have a substantial investment from AFRL in machine learning operations. That's obviously a stepping stone to artificial intelligence at the tactical edge as well, doing it through TAK. You'll hear from the AFRL team this week on that, but there's some really basic things already, some narrow AIs that we're starting to see come out. So look for the Red Queen plugin from the Darkive team. They were awarded a CIBR from AFRL. They have a really nice user-attuned voice recognition, voice instruction, voice interaction capability now. It's unlimited rights to the U.S. government, which Darkive volunteered to the U.S. government, and we're really excited about the direction of that. So we're seeing these narrow AIs start to make their way out kind of for test and evaluation. We want to see where else the community can go with a lot more data. Okay, releasable base map tile is a great open source imagery set that we're going to increasingly make available. It's already available to you in ATAK today. You've got 3 tile sets, but they're still in raster tiles. Can't wait for vector tiles. That's coming really, really soon. Yeah, yep. And then you'll hear from Sean Brady this afternoon in a recorded keynote. DoD actually has a DoD level DepSec down API strategy. Like we are now from the top levels of the Department of Defense at the decision maker level saying, get with it. develop your applications via application programming interface, or API. There's so much huge positive momentum. All we're trying to do is write it so the tactical end user wins. And then obviously we've got to have centralized TAK investment. We've been making I think an ever tighter case for it over the past few years, and I think we'll actually realize that within the next 6 to 12 months. And the key outcomes, we expect seamless continuous delivery, like no ifs, ands, or buts. As soon as we release the software, as soon as our pipeline says the software is valid for release, we want that to be in a user's hands as long as the program office that has the final say on that agrees. Digital rights management, let's kind of enumerate some of these actually. So we have applied the DoD data strategy to TAK, so now we're starting to put language to it, which I think is exciting because now that allows us to communicate in common terms, in terms of actual strategy today, what we're going to do with the TAK products. But let's talk about these for a minute. Cognitive applications, the application should work harder for you. The more data it gets, the smarter it should be, the more it should do for you, the easier the mission should be for the tactical end user to complete, or the more that tactical end user should be able to do. Let's talk about autonomous unmanned systems for a minute. ATAK should really be aiding you in the tasking, the identification of targets, of NAIs, TAIs. TAK should be doing that. But think about intelligent maps as well. As a tactical end user, boy, wouldn't you love it if all the red diamonds just showed up for you on the battlefield, and you didn't actually have to go through and label them, and you didn't have to wait for the transmissions to come through. If you load map imagery, can we actually have the map imagery label itself? Evolutionary tactics, this is how the units learn, and so this is going to be where I kind of land the plane. We want units to be able to evolve their tactics continually. We want them to have a clear understanding and a very dynamic command support relationship throughout the formation. ComRel charts today are pencils and paper or dry erase boards or what have you. Our Ukrainian friends actually have some pretty advanced command support relationship visualizations, but I think we can go even further with the U.S. military. I don't think there's any reason why we can't actually visualize command support relationships for the entire theater. I really don't. We have to get better at identity, but the program offices are really doing a lot of work there to advance identity at the tactical edge. I think we will see an adaptive ComRel. I mean, think about joint all-domain command and control. If you're better positioned to execute a specific tasking than somebody that's in somebody else's formation, and you're nearby and you have the ability, shouldn't you be tasked to do that? That's adaptive ComRel. I think that is the heart of joint all-domain command and control, actually, is the ability to ad hoc assign taskings. If we're having humans do that, we're putting too much effort into it. We need humans thinking higher order planning. And then finally, rapid systems integration. You're going to hear a great presentation from Stitches this week, how the Stitches team is advancing actually security classification guide mapping. So when I say we're going to be compliant with the SCGs, there's some magic behind that. There's some real stuff behind that. The Stitches team has come up with a technology called battering ram. Stitches was designed for rapidly integrating systems. What they found is they can actually suss out the conflicts and the synchronizations between all kinds of security classification guides at all classification levels. So they're doing some really important and unrecognized work right now to actually make us all compliant with each other in terms of adjudicated, validated, signed security classification guides. There are some really exciting times ahead for how we transmit and map information. Okay, so I want everybody to leave here with a plan to go host their own hackathon. A hackathon doesn't have to be more than 2 people, but it can't be any less than 2 people. You got to have a partner, someone who's going to share that knowledge with you and take it forward to whatever groups they roll in. I'm going to give you a recipe. I'm going to give you an anti-recipe, and it's going to be one that we're really familiar with. So your recipe: find an end user who needs to solve a problem. Find an end user who needs to solve a problem. Okay? Listen to that end user. You guys should all be going home and figuring out a way to go to the end user and hack with them. Okay? This is what I'm teeing up for you. Get your gear squared away. Assume you're not going to have any external connectivity. This bit us hard at the Bravo 3 Hackathon in Hawaii. You know, we've got great comms on the island, but as soon as you go into the building, you are not allowed to bring any electronics in. Virtual machines have to be completely pre-baked. Get serious about taking virtual machines with you that you can develop in, because that's going to be a key enabler to actual conflict. Hackathons are also practice, you know, for that kind of thing. But get your gear squared away and make sure everything works before you go. Go to the data, and that's probably with the end user. Don't have them send CDs or hard drives to you. Don't have them like safe, or iSafe, I mean, and dots, like these kind of, you know, pseudo cross-domain solutions. Like, they're going to fail you. They've failed me. You're not going to get the data to you in the quantity you need to do meaningful work. Go to the data, have a plan to go to the data, which is probably with that end user you found in step number 1. And then iterate with them. Doesn't matter if it's 2 days, 4 days, a month, 90 days. We see all varieties of this. Technology evolves when the engineer, when the practitioner is with the end user. It doesn't evolve as fast, nearly as fast as it needs to when we're over here and they're way across the ocean. Go to the end user and iterate with them. Solve the problem. Don't leave without a solved problem. If you gotta pare that problem down continually until it's solved, until you've solved a problem, don't leave the hackathon without a solved problem. Put your solution in a place where others can find it. Tak.gov, if it's source code, get.tak.gov. I think most everybody here has access to that. Stash your code on get.tak.gov. We're very permissive intentionally. If you have access to tak.gov, use it. Put your source code there so that you can point people to it. Give a great shout out to the Joint Electronic Attack Coordination Office. Adam, did I get that right? GECO? They've put a really super robust electronic warfare API set up on get.tak.gov. So like, we have all the tools we need to do electronic warfare, for example, already stashed on tak.gov. Put it up there, but tell others about it too. Here's how you don't run a hackathon, okay? Tell people what you're going to build. Don't tell people what you're going to build until you built it. Find a problem on a PowerPoint slide. Look for the lightning bolts. Those are where the problems are, right? Request permission to solve the problem before you go solve it. Don't ask for permission. Invite the user to your office and give them a diagram. What user doesn't like leaving a program office with a diagram? Find someone to build your architecture. Don't build it yourself. Find someone to do that for you. There's other. How many of you program managers in here have engineering degrees? Raise your hands. Okay. If that's you, use your engineering degree. Like, we need you so badly. Commit to releasing what you've built only after all the features are tested. Hackathons don't work like that. Refine the backlog. All right. Full day exercise right there. Don't worry about backlogs at hackathons. They're not projects. They're hackathons. Protect your code from authorized access. You know, someone might steal it from you. Do hackathons, folks. Like, we need your help understanding the data, but you got to be hands-on with the technology, and you got to be with the user, and you got to be with the data. So my point, we need these hackathons like mad. If you don't leave here with a hackathon plan, with some idea to pull your desk buddy aside for 4 hours next week and have your own little hackathon in your cube, hack a policy problem. Hack how you're getting ATOs, you know? Hack how you're automating or not automating validation for how you ship software. These are all things that can be hacked. So you need at least 2. They can be coders, they can be real hackers, you know, in the pen testing sense. Get together and solve problems. And if you're going to use TAK, if you're going to host a hackathon with TAK, tell us. We've got tak.gov events. That's how you all got registered for this. We will post it. We want that knowledge to be out there. If you're industry, host hackathons for your employees. Bring other companies together, hack with you. Bring users together with your employees. Go to the users, more importantly, and hack with them. And don't be afraid to leave source code in place, like something you cook up in a 4-day hackathon at a unit. You know, if that's really going to create a big intellectual property issue, like, let's talk through that. But like, we need solutions in the formations at the tactical formation level, at the tactical echelons. So here's why we need hackathons. It's that last bullet. These are how the users, we're getting reps for war, folks. Hackathons are repetitions for war. These are how the tactical units, who are going to go control the robots and do the missions, This is how they're going to learn how to evolve their tactics. TAK was evolved to solve a tactics problem. Close air support. Close air support is doctrine, but it's also tactics. Fires are tactics. We've really got to lean back into this, and I can't stress that hard enough. Come up with a plan this week to go back home and lead a hackathon, even if it's your own base, even if it's your own office. And if it's your own office and you don't have end users there, find a plan, figure out a plan to get to the end user and do a hackathon with them. They will love you for it, and you will have no end of problems. You won't be imagining problems. You will have really clear problems to solve for them and with them, okay? Do hackathons. We need them badly. We'll help you. It's a holacracy. There's no program. There's no, I'm not an overlord of TAK, all right? Like, my role is to facilitate and make sure that all of you can do what you need to do to get the mission done. And there's some really exciting times ahead for TAK. And that means there's some really exciting times ahead for the tactical end user. Go host a hackathon, solve a problem for real users with real data and real tools, and get users the things that they need. Okay, thank you.